Welcome viewers, this is Media Track on CCR TV. I'm Devika Sequeira.
And I'm Ashley Do Rosario.
So this week, Ashley and I were just looking at the backlog of stories, and we thought we'd start off with the two big stories that have been trending in Goa. One is the National Green Tribunal, which has taken cognizance of the Goa Coastal Zone Management Authority for not taking action against rising illegal structures, and the other one is on the, Lokayukta Justice Mishra, who he has issued 21 orders, and Justice Mishra, of course, his term ended, and so Goa is once again without a Lokayukta. Now there is some court case, and there is some undertaking by the government that a new Lokayukta will be appointed within 3 months. Now, whether that happens or not, Ashley, as I was telling you, whether that happens or not, the Lokayukta, the outgoing Lokayukta, has talked about how he has been sort of denied any teeth. The Lokayukta itself has no teeth, and whatever orders are issued, they are not followed upon. Now, just let's look at one of the cases. One of the cases is against Waste Management Minister Michael Lobo, when he was chairman of the
NGPDA,
the North Goa PDA, and there Justice Mishra said, that he was not even fit to be a minister, and now the minister has threatened to file a defamation case. So, Ashley, where does this leave us, because the Lokayukta, if you remember, before the BJP came to power at the center, the Lokayukta became the sort of the focus of what the new parties, that is, if BJP came to power, if AAP came to power, what they were going to do, bring the Lokayukta in and give it some teeth, etc. But that hasn't happened at all.
Devika, the Lokayukta came into focus even much before that whole 2011-2012
Yes.
anti-corruption movement that happened in, campaign that happened in Delhi. Through the judgment of the Karnataka Lokayukta, Santosh Hegde, which forced Yediyurappa to quit as chief minister, when an investigation done through the Lokayukta exposed corruption between Yediyurappa's son and vast tracts of prime land that was denotified by Yediyurappa. So that kind of gave anti-corruption campaigners strength to start this movement, and that's how this movement started. But once the government or the political spectrum at that particular time agreed to pass Lokayukta acts in most of the states and also at Central Act, they then left a few loopholes here and there in the law, which completely removed the sheen out of this Lokayukta institution, and that's basically what happened in Goa. The wily late Manohar Parrikar, won that 2012 election. After decades, a political party got a majority on its own in 2012, mainly on the anti-corruption plank. So he did come out with this Lokayukta Act in Goa at that time, but left out the office of the chief minister.
So they don't come within the purview of the Lokayukta. So it gives it very little teeth.
Exactly, it gives it very little teeth, and also the orders of the Lokayukta are not equivalent to the orders of a high court, which should ideally be the case.
But doesn't the same apply to the National Green Tribunal, which has been coming out with these very sort of stringent judgments and criticizing the government for not doing its work, especially the Goa Coastal Zone Management. Now the Green Court has observed that in several cases the CRZ notification has not been complied with till date, and then it said that it has become a business for the authority to indirectly help illegal constructions. So where is this really being most affected? Which part of Goa? Green Court has observed that in several cases the 1991 Act has not been complied with, and polluters and law violators are still continuing with their activities.
Devika, this coastal zone issue in Goa has been dragging along for 3-4 decades now. Ever since that first CRZ notification came out in 1991. As you know, the coastal belt of Goa, particularly in north, okay, is heavily built upon. Okay. Now the problem with the CRZ regulation is it came in 91. There was a lot of activity that happened before 91. So there's this gray area in that 91 notification of the CRZ, which was being used by all these people to go ahead with illegal constructions along the coastal belt. Now that was dragging along. Then came the 2011 notification again, and now we have the 2018 notification. So everything, the laws are overlapping. There's a lot of confusion there. But with the NGT, the NGT is virtually like a high court. Okay. It has almost equivalent powers as the high court, and an order of an NGT has to be implemented by the government. That it doesn't happen is another flaw in the system.
What the National Green Tribunal has observed is that even though it passes laws, the Goa Coastal Zone Management is taking the guise of pending appeals to delay its decision on demolition of structures and indirectly helping in the illegal construction. So, it's this thing just goes on and on, and we never find a solution to all these problems in Goa. That has been the problem, really.
Yeah, and it is politics. Finally, the politicians need the votes.
And but it is
you have these people who having along the coast, agitating that
but
my structure should
frankly,
not be demolished.
Ashley, I think it is more than politics. It is the whole thing of corruption having gone in sort of, it has percolated to such an extent, so deeply, that one doesn't even know whether we can ever get out of this. Now, what I want to point out to you is a few days ago, the Chief Minister made this, I think it was just yesterday or day before or whatever, earlier in this week, that he found some cases of people working in that industrial corporation or all these GIDC or whatever, and they had allotted plots to themselves. So the Chief Minister made a big hoo-ha of it, putting himself on this high moral pedestal, and yet there are all these cases where crores and crores of rupees are involved, and they're just turning a blind eye. Not only that, they're actually ignoring the orders of the judges in all these cases. So that is the extent to which we've reached. So to move away from that corruption angle, let me come to the corruption angle in the media and the TRP manipulation racket busted in Mumbai and 4 people arrested. Now, how does this reflect on us as media people? What do you think about it?
Devika, there are 2 parts to the media. One is the ownership and one is the journalist part. The journalist part does in more recent years, you have journalists actually becoming owners. Like for example, let us take the television channel that is in the news for this TRP scam. It is the Republic. Arnab is the one of the main promoters of that this thing. So of course it reflects badly on our on the media, and that there was corruption in the media. Media cannot be something falling from the heavens, right? It's part of the society, and society is corrupt. Politicians are corrupt. The government is corrupt. The system is corrupt. You can't expect the media.
So, just to explain a bit to the viewer, TRP stands for television rating points, and TRP is a tool to judge which TV programs are viewed the most, and also indicates the viewer's choice and popularity of a particular channel. Now, Republic TV, which is one of the biggest ones in question here, had apparently at least that's what the allegation is in this Mumbai FIR filed against them, that they had used people within the system to manipulate their TRP ratings by having people in some households just keep the television on and switched on to Republic TV, and so their ratings went up. Even though nobody was watching the television, the channel was playing on and on and on. But actually what I want to point out is that this particular thing affects television channels more than it does the print media. Now print media, we know also, has a lot of them have become very pro-government, and I suppose a lot depends on advertising revenues, how they they can manage the business, etc., etc. So media is as much a business as anything else.
True.
Yes.
True.
So
even in the print media, Devika, how much business you make through national advertising and stuff like that depends on what are your circulation numbers.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
The circulation numbers are certified by an agency called the Audit Bureau of Circulation, okay, ABC, and those are the numbers that these big advertising agencies rely on to place ads in different newspapers. If I am not wrong, there is manipulation even in that. The ABC is considered one of the most corrupt agencies,
right?
and yet it is the agency whose numbers advertisers rely on to distribute ads to the various media organizations.
Right. So actually now to come to the coronavirus pandemic, which is still playing out very heavily in Goa. 450 to 500 cases.
Almost 500. We are 492 today.
Yes, and deaths have crossed 492.
Yeah,
right?
492 deaths. That's right.
So on a daily basis, 6 to 7 deaths. Now the government has decided to include the government insurance scheme for the Deen Dayal DDSSY into this
cover
treatment,
COVID,
cover COVID.
Yeah.
And there is some this, but I just got a message today from one of the doctors in these private hospitals, and he is saying that covering COVID-19 under DSSY will add to the cases in private hospitals, which is not possible to handle for the hospital like Manipal, which has a cancer facility. Now obviously they are being forced to bring down their rates, and so they are not keen to open the hospital. So this is the point I've been trying to make, that VIPs who are being treated in these private hospitals, one is Manipal, one is Victor Hospital. Healthway is not included not treating. I think one is Victor Apollo, etc. People have a better chance of
obviously
recovering in these private hospitals. And is it because they're getting special attention, better medical facilities?
There are two things, Devika, to this. One is there is constant monitoring in this private hospitals of the patient,
right?
Okay, which is very crucial in COVID care, because it is that spur of the moment drop in your oxygen levels that causes the complications. And if that is not monitored, then you don't even know that your oxygen levels have dropped and that you need external oxygen support. So in private hospitals, what happens is you have a nurse or you have some paramedic that is constantly checking your oxygen levels, your pulse rates, so they are aware whether your oxygen levels are dropping or not. What happens in these GMC and the others is the numbers are so big.
Right, that is true. So I'm looking at a report in your paper, the Goan, and it says the GMC is full. COVID hospitals at 80% occupancy. So this is really one of the big problems. And the second point I wanted to make is, the government has issued these home isolation kits, and what they've gone and done, which I think is quite shocking is they've given these kits with pictures of the chief minister and the health minister.
Yes,
I mean, are they spending their personal money that they should be doing this rather than sort of putting their focus only in helping the public get over this?
Devika, a little bit of politics is going to come into these things because everybody in Goa, all the political parties in Goa are looking at COVID from a very political angle.
Isn't that shocking?
Of course
to you?
it is. We've been complaining about that from the start of this pandemic. But leaving that aside, what they have gone and done now is nothing great. Okay. These home isolation kits should have started from the day they permitted home isolation.
Exactly.
Number one. If you are unable to give them the kits, at least have the primary health system monitor these people in their homes. What they went and did was they permitted, IMA to take charge of telemedicine related monitoring of these home isolated cases, and that is basically what has caused all these high mortality. Goa's mortality rate is so high among the COVID cases.
We have the highest apparently if you go by the population ratio.
That is exactly what the Dean said yesterday when they launched this home isolation kits. The problem was these people who tested positive but opted for home isolation were not being monitored. And they started coming to the hospitals when it was already too late.
That's true.
More than 40% of the people who have died in GMC and in ESI are people who have died within 24 hours of being admitted to the hospital, which clearly shows that they delayed getting admitted to the hospital.
So actually looking at another story is, the story that has been going on for months and months, what is going to happen to the Kala Academy in Kampal. So after all this, going to the court and going out, the government has finally come to the decision that the Kala Academy open air auditorium may be repaired. And simultaneously we are told that the government is rebuilding this huge complex in Pato. And also they have some huge complex planned in Mercedes. So what is all this about really? The Mercedes complex is what exactly?
It is kind of a replica of what is in Pato. But with a more wider spectrum of activities. It's not just, administrative offices or corporate offices like what it is in Pato, but they are going to bring in an element of culture and entertainment and that kind of stuff to kind of make it a tourist attraction.
So
that's
tourism
the idea.
Is the usual, wherever one goes there's tourism at play in Goa. So there was this very interesting sort of very localized story where the Ribandar people started agitating to get the old hospital converted into a health center. They want a full-fledged health center. So what I found interesting in this story is the reaction of the MLA, who is Babush Montserrat. He's the MLA of Panjim, and Panjim extends up to Ribandar. He says the government has no funds to set up a hospital in Ribandar. Now that statement to me sounds rather, strange, because the government has spent over 13 crore landscaping the beachfront in Miramar, something that was completely unnecessary. So this, you can expect to see far more agitation from the people in Ribandar, considering that some high-profile activists live there.
Devika, I suspect this has got to do with the CCP election coming up in February. If it was a genuine need, I don't see the issue cropping up now 7 months into the pandemic. That's the argument. And when Jim was removed from that old GMC at Ribandar, This demand should have come up then.
Right.
That building is still empty, and it is designed for a hospital.
It was meant, I was told, it was meant, at least the Ayush Ministry, which is run by Sripad, had made a statement saying that they were going to move a full-fledged office there. So
office is fine. You don't require that whole building for a kind of a primary health center to be set up in Ribandar. And geographically, it is required.
Yeah, obviously.
You know, it is required.
Yeah.
You can't expect people from Ribandar coming all the way to the Panjim Health Center or going to the old Goa one.
Yeah.
You know.
But the other point I want to make, Ashley, is that it's such a beautiful building. It should have been restored and reused for something.
It's not that it is in bad shape. It's in good shape.
It's in good shape.
Yes.
And you know, one of the festivals was held there recently.
Yes.
And now, in fact, 2 festivals were held there, and it was a very, very nice venue.
Yeah.
Except that it can be a little for the traffic, but it just shows how badly we keep our old heritage structures, and they could be used. It's the same thing that has happened to the old GMC in Kampal, where it's used only for 10-20 days in the whole year, and it just lies empty the rest of the time.
See, that's the problem with the way the government looks at maintaining this heritage thing. They only think that the civil part, the civil engineering part of it is important.
Yes.
But you know, how is it organically used?
You
know, that's very crucial in any heritage restoration and maintenance. If it is not used, these structures just decay.
There are dozens of buildings in Panjim itself.
Exactly.
You know, that are in need of being restored. They could be restored beautifully. They could be you know, given out on rent, and the government would be making money. But rather than that, they just believe in breaking down and putting up a new construction.
Another big example is the Adil Shah Palace.
That's true.
The old secretariat.
Which is unused for years
and years. And they've spent so much of money on you know, restoring it and in the civil works of it. It's crazy. I mean, it's such a beautiful structure and such a historic structure. I mean, your governments for 4 decades ran from that place.
True. Well, the other story that I found quite interesting was the government's decision to rope in retired academicians to improve quality of education. And one of the things that is being talked about is they have to have a PhD degree so as to improve the quality of education in Goa, and they would come into this. Now, you know, education is a crucial subject right at this point when schools haven't reopened. And university, I don't know if the university is running.
University is running on the online platform.
Okay. So what exactly is happening to the reopening of schools? Because actually, if you recall, I sent you this new report which has come out, where it says that children are one of the biggest super spreaders of coronavirus, and reopening schools is going to become very, very challenging.
What the Chief Minister is talking of now is, it is definitely going to be beyond October 15th.
Right.
It's impossible to start schools before October 15th is what the CM has said yesterday. But apart from the schools, the colleges, Devika, the Directorate of Higher Education has just launched a YouTube channel, okay, where students can download lectures, physical lectures. What they have done is, over this last 3-4 months, I think this is one government initiative that needs to be lauded a little bit. We have the Director of Higher Education, Prasad Lolekar, who took personal interest and did a lot of back-breaking work in the last 3 months, where they have recorded 3,500 lectures.
But Ashley, what about students who are not on computers, who don't have Wi-Fi? Are they out of the system, or
no?
Are
they are not out of the system. Especially in the college level, you can expect students from the college sections, that is the graduate, undergraduate colleges, to kind of manage this thing with a program that they are introducing, where they are going to have you know, each college in each year of the degree course are going to have 10 to 12 e-mitras, basically people who will take charge of ensuring that these video lectures are distributed to their peers. Okay. That is what they have done, and there is no fixed timing that, you know, you will have to listen to this lecture or take this lecture.
You within can do it
at your time, and it is available from that channel offline as well. So they have already uploaded 1,500 of these videos, and another 2,000 videos are in the process of post-production editing and you know, that kind of stuff, and they expect in the next month all the 3,500 videos in all the streams, commerce, science, arts. As far as the technical schools are concerned, the engineering and medicine and architecture and art, fine arts, these are the colleges themselves are handling this at their level, not the government.
So that's a bit of a cheerful part of this week's news, and since we've run out of time, on that note we must end. Thank you for watching.